you would have been a part of it, either yourself, your family member, your friends, relatives. You would have got a lot of calls, a lot of inquiries, and yes, you have a lot of support systems. Rotary has taken it on a forward-footing. There is a separated COVID war room which is set up to the help of any of the Rotarians, their families, friends, anyone for that matter. So things are getting up better. We are likely to get this wave coming down in the next 20 days or close to a month. But we still have a lot of challenges. And though a lot of information is already there on the web, a lot of information is already there through your WhatsApps, through learnings from the first wave. I'm sure all of you already know 90% of what I'm going to probably tell you today. It's not going to be something new. But that's where the learning really comes, because when we to eliminate fear, which is always there. There is some corner, the corner, we do have that small fear element, isn't it? So how do we basically break that fear? I just found a method basically to get over this fear, and that is the fear itself in a way, because that basically starts with FEAR. You have faith basically in what you do or what you probably know. So faith is the most important thing. We always say in medicine, faith heals. What the doctor does, what the medicines do, is all the next part of it. If you don't have that faith fully, healing doesn't take place. So we all need to heal and come over this COVID, because yes, to do that, we need to have high amount of great faith. Yes, we will come over it. Faith is the most important thing. The next most important thing is the E, which is, education itself, knowing what it is, getting proper amount of knowledge, and then dissipating that information to all around. So the E comes in education. The A is the awareness. There is a difference between education and awareness. Education is what you probably get on net, everything. But exactly knowing what is needed for you or for your family member, what to be doing at the end moment, is your awareness.
What is it?
Then, yes, the R, which is nothing but being responsive. When
What
we
was
say
it?
responsive, it's like not only taking responsibility, onus, but also reciprocating, which basically means at the time, if anything we needed, what kind of help can you lead out to people? As Rotarians, we would always want to help that helping hand to see that somebody is out of problem, isn't it? So that is what basically is about. So we will see how you can all get over this fear using the FEAR itself, isn't it? So I'll briefly rush you through this basics about COVID, which you all know. As a disclaimer, yes, this is meant for just a clinical discussion. There is a lot of it which is going to be continuing. There's so much of dynamics in it. So certain parts of it are subject to changeover. And so you need to take this all in the current scenario that we are actually in. You all know this particular portion, how it spreads. Yes, the droplet infection, it can spread through, droplets which come from your mouth, which come from your nose, and you need to maintain 6 feet social distancing in order to ensure that the virus basically doesn't get transmitted. The why the 6 feet is basically because for the virus to basically travel and then fall down onto a surface, it goes almost like a trajectory. So when it uses that trajectory, when it falls in out of a trajectory, that's why you need that 6 feet distance, which is very important. Yes, there is the next big issue which we are facing now, myth or kind of a belief that it is spreading in the air. Is it really spreading in the air? Which means that you're sitting here, you're not directly in contact with anyone, but just because somebody else is having COVID somewhere around through the air, can you get it? So that is a huge fear, especially the second wave, when we have seen the explosive nature of cases. There is a thought, and a lot of scientists have said, yes, it is likely to be spreading in the air. But when we say that it is likely to spread in the air, it does not mean that it is there everywhere. That is not the case. It only means that if you are in a crowded situation, wherein you are probably in a place where there is more load of the virus itself, which means if you're in a crowded place, assuming 2 or 3 of them are positive there, 2 or 3 of them are already harboring and are secreting that virus in their droplets, then that particular environment is more vulnerable. The chances of the viral load in that atmosphere is likely to be more. So if you're probably staying in a very small community, or a very close-knit community, then there are therefore greater chances of you getting it. That's why in this particular season, we have seen that, you know, if there is a relative, there is one particular member in the family be positive, very, very shortly, within no time, you find 3, 4 of them in the family all getting positive. This was not the case in the first wave. That is because of the little bit mutation in the virus, the penetration of the virus, which is slightly more. So these things have made it a little more vulnerable, but it really doesn't mean that, you know, everywhere it is at home. So you can take that off your mind. We all know the common symptoms that we have. Yes, you could start off with sometimes fever, sometimes no fever, sometimes sore throat, which may not be there very much in the second wave, a little bit of cough, some kind of an itchy feeling, and then starts off as a cough, a dry cough sometimes. Some people, most people, it is tiredness. Especially in this wave, tiredness, fatigueness, susto, antara like sustagide, mujhe bahut ek tarah ka thakan ho raha hai. I'm not able to get up and do my work very agilely. This is what generally is a feeling. And very often it's like, you know, you would have probably done a little more work the previous day. You would have worked up and done a little more kind of a heavy work, or maybe a very extra little bit amount of work. It could be physical work, a little mental work, or a tiring day. And then the next day you suddenly land up that, yes, you are probably getting some symptoms of fatigueness and tiredness. This is very, very classical way by which it presents. So that's why it's equally important, therefore, that each day you take it on a lighter note, take it little bit slowly. Don't exert yourself too much. One of my classmates got affected when one day he just felt very bad, down. He was feeling little low. He felt, what is it? I'm feeling low. And he just decided, he's a very ardent cyclist. He went on and did, you know, he's used to doing cycling, like 50 kilometers. Some of the Rotarians also, who are part of the cycle federation, you know that they go long kilometers. So he went almost 100 kilometers, but when he was ending it, he was extremely tired and fatigued. He was really feeling like he's going to fall off. He came home, just collapsed on the bed, lied down, and when he got up, he really knew that he was already positive. So this is how sometimes it presents very dramatically. So a high amount of exertion can literally stimulate. You could be having a little virus load. Remember that. All of us, many of them could be already mildly asymptomatic. When we do that extra exertion, our immunity falls down and suddenly you can literally become a symptomatic person. So that is highly possible. Some of them can develop, you know, a shortness of breath, which is very important. Suddenly starts feeling a gasping, little tiredness without any other symptoms. Headache is a little more common symptom in the present scenario. In the 2.0, we are seeing a lot of people experiencing just, you know, severe headache, one-sided headache, a throbbing headache, which is very possible. Some of them, yes, characteristically still present with the loss of smell or loss of taste. So early morning, before you have your coffee, ensure that you smell it and then have your coffee. So you know that, yes, I am having my coffee perfectly. So that's always helpful. Sometimes a runny nose, a stuffy nose, yes, very typical. And the other new important thing which we are seeing these days is many of them present with nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. This was not the GI symptoms which we call, you know, just stomach upset, mera pet kharab hai, thoda, I'm not feeling like eating. If I eat something, vomiting sensation aa raha hai. I'm feeling like, you know, I've already passed 2-3 times loose motions or semi-solid motion. So these are sometimes very classical, which we just sometimes feel, you know, it is just that maybe I ate something which is not proper. That is our first thought, right? We don't want to attribute it to COVID, obviously. So we want to just be sure that we have probably something we have had not proper. Maybe that could be a reason. Just observe your symptoms. If more than one day of GI disturbance, then do contact your physician, talk to your physician, ensure, yes, whether this could be a symptom or not. Some of them develop rashes also. Most people usually recover within after the first 7 days, 8 days, very easily by the second week. Most of them will recover. Only some of them go on to the next stage of typically landing up with breathlessness, lungs getting involved, which we all know classically. So yes, we all know that there is no specific treatment of it. Identifying early and quarantining so that you're isolating yourself is very important. So therefore, the take-home point is don't delay your RT-PCR if you need to get it done after consultation with a physician. If you have a doubt wherein you are already in close contact with someone, घर पे किसी को है या अपार्टमेंट में रह रहे हैं, आजू बाजू अपार्टमेंट में किसी को है, and you have met them, or you have talked to them on a lift or something like that, and then you have come to know they are positive, just watch for symptoms. If you feel some doubt, go ahead, get your RT-PCR done. I may also advise that sometimes don't do only your RT-PCR, do also the rapid antigen test, because sometimes you will find RT-PCRs coming negative. We have seen a lot of cases this time with RT-PCRs negative, and sometimes only the rapid antigen test being positive. So good to do both of them when you're going for the tests itself. We all know these things, how to prevent spread of infection, wearing your mask, social distancing, washing your hands with soap, water, everything. And yes, for vaccination, which is going to be the very important thing. We have a lot of challenges as for our population, Indian economy is concerned, and vaccination drive is being concerned. But yes, every one of you, the moment you get your opportunity to get vaccinated according to the rules and regulations that happens, please go ahead and get yourself vaccinated. My share slide stopped. Is my shares visible?
No.
I think somebody.
Jayashree Pawar screen share के लिए Jayashree Pawar. Okay.
Yeah, so we did tell about this. Wearing your mask. Now, this is something little bit important. Ensure that like you are protected at any time you're just stepping outside your house. It could be just walking to your apartment lift. It could be just going outside. It could be just opening the door, just sometimes being outside in your quadrant. If you're probably staying in a kind of an apartment complex, you need to go down to your medical shop or for your grocery buying or anything, wear your mask, ensure that you are protected almost all the time. If you have anyone positive or suspected positive even at home, it's important that everyone at home wears a mask, including the person who is suspected. So ensure that you are masked even at home if you are actually suspecting. And sometimes it may be good that you just have senior elderly people at home, and yes, you just want to be extra careful. No, absolutely no harm in just wearing a small surgical mask. These surgical masks are the easiest and the safest to wear, easily can be worn for close to 12 hours to 18 hours without any kind of suffocation. And it's very easy to breathe through it also, and it gives more protection. So at home, I would prefer that, yes, do use a surgical mask. If you're using a cloth mask, ensure that you wash it every frequently, once in a day, so that you're not using the same mask over and over again. So even at home, especially if you're talking to your elderly people at home, it's always protective, because you may be asymptomatic and you might easily shed the virus, and they may be more susceptible. If you're probably having dinner together, ensure that you're distance a little bit away from them. I have stopped having dinner with my father for the last month almost, because I'm worried where I might be harboring the virus, seeing patients, coming back. So there is always a risk of me transmitting. So I have stopped having family dinners together. Yes, these are small challenges which we have to sacrifice at this time, but ensure that you take all the precautions even while remaining at home. Very important point, all the Rotarians at least must really spread this information, be a Rotarian, and stick to this important advice. Suggestion, if I might say, not an advice. Do not use the masks that have the valves, the expiratory valves which are there. Do not use those masks, cloth masks or filter masks which have those filters. The filters will easily allow your expired air to go through. So it basically means it prevents air from getting in directly, but whatever you are coughing, you are talking, even sometimes you're talking a little loudly, the air from your mouth is going to go out through those filters. So ensure that even as, anywhere, even you see someone coming to you, near you, wearing those expiratory valves, now that person is protected. You are at risk because directly it might affect you more. So avoid direct contact with people who are wearing the expiratory masks. I strictly tell them not to wear it or cover it with another mask or a cloth or something if they need to talk to me with those valves. Important point which you might want to do little bit more during this time is to go in for the double masking. Double masking is a very useful concept. You could literally wear two masks, which means that, like, do not wear two cloth masks. Especially if you have those cloth masks with filter, don't wear one cloth mask with filter and then another cloth mask with filter. It will literally suffocate you, and all the expired air will be also hot, and that creates a lot of other problems, including dry eye, dryness of the nose, crusting, bleeding of the nose, and many other problems. So as to avoid that, good to probably ideally use a cloth mask and use a surgical mask inside. So surgical mask followed by a cloth mask, or sometimes you may want to just use two surgical masks. You can use two surgical masks. If you're using an N95 mask, do not use any other double mask over it. Ensure that the N95 mask is covered well, clipped on. It should be with clip. Do not use N95 which does not have clips. It is practically, it's like not even as safe as using a cloth mask. Ill-fitted mask is more worst than even a good fitted cloth mask. Remember that. So it needs to have a clip, and see that it is tightly stuck on. It is basically helpful. You will see health workers, some of us use the double mask. I use a surgical mask followed by an N95 mask whenever I'm basically in my hospital environment. So these are certainly useful. It gives you much more protection, over more than 90% protection if you're double masked. You could tuck the side inward so that it sneaks in safely. It has been shown that this gives you better fitness, better amount of safety in terms of precaution. Yes, you do know all these basic precautions. I will miss this. I'll skip this important point, which I might want to briefly say is, what happens when you are actually dealing with a person who is there at home. A little bit extra precaution needs to be emphasized here. I have seen houses where, somebody is ill. Okay, fine. The son or the daughter-in-law or someone in the house is attending to them. Shortly after some time, the child, daughter or son is attending to them. After that, somebody else is attending to them. Within a day or two, then you realize that everyone in the family is positive. So especially the moment you feel that somebody is positive at home, you have it confirmed with tests and things, ensure that they are isolated, they are followed up, but they are taken care of, and have one person, dedicated person, just attending to them, and ensure that that dedicated person is also almost isolated similarly. So it's equally important. So if probably the daughter or the daughter-in-law of the house is taking care, then ensure that they are not then getting into the kitchen, doing this, doing that, so many things. We need to take responsibilities and try to see to it that other things are covered up. So they are also, not totally isolated, but ensure that they are also not, catching up with other members. The child is not going and hugging them. So those things especially needs to be taken care to ensure that you're not risking the spread. When you're handling these people who are sick or need attention, ensure that you keep talking to them frequently. That's very important. Their mental strength may be low. They will have more fears. They will at that time get messages, WhatsApp messages from friends. ये वो करके यहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन बेड नहीं मिल रहा है, ये नहीं मिल रहा है. तब तक उनका BP सब कुछ is going up high. They're just going in an emotional turmoil. Symptom wise, they are totally fine. But all these things, try to avoid the person who is sick from even seeing their phone if need be. Let them probably talk to their friends, talk to their relatives, try to keep them engaged. If they love music, play a lot of music. So we need to give them space, we need to give them attention, and ensure that they are occupied mentally and relaxed. So that's the key, most important thing. Ensure that these people are hydrated very well. One of the key elements by which We have seen people who are hydrated better have much lesser symptoms. If you're not drinking enough water when you're sick, that can immediately lead to a lot of problems. Your electrolytes goes for a toss and then leads to more problems. Do monitor all his symptoms, as I told you. It's very important. And these are some of the new things, as I told you. Younger people are more vulnerable during this time. More children are likely to get affected sometimes. There are some vague symptoms, like, of late we are getting a lot of people with just red eyes. First day, 2 days, they'll just come redness of the eyes. We give some drops. It is not going. Kuch nahi ho raha hai. Again, they give a call after third day. Sir, red लाल नहीं जा रहा है, वैसा ही है, एक आंख था, अभी दूसरा आंख भी आ गया. And then after some time, by the third day, then they start telling other symptoms. Sir, headache भी था, थोड़ा cough है, थोड़ा dryness है, थोड़ा पेट का problem है. These things start by the fourth day, fifth day. So you could be harboring the virus through your eyes. So it's important. It's very, very difficult to look at the eyes and even have an eye examination and then tell you that this could be COVID. It will just mimic like any one of the viral general infections. It will mimic like an allergy. So there are no typical features to say that, the moment you get red eye, this is COVID. We cannot tell it. We just have to observe for your other symptoms, and only then we can come to know, yes, this could be a possibility. Some of them even complain of hearing impairment during these times. So these are some of the very, very, few salient features of this particular wave. And yes, as I told you, it comes in more, concentrations. So some of the 10 most things that we will probably want to focus on COVID. Look at the general condition, key features of symptoms. Your age is very important. Look at the vitals, which means, your pulse, your BP, very important. Find out whether you have any comorbidities, which means you might be diabetic, you might be hypertensive, you might be asthmatic, you might be taking some medications, you could be on dialysis. So these are things called comorbidities, wherein some other illness is probably there, and that might be like, adding to the present condition. Do have a pulse oximeter at home, every one of you. Ensure that you can check your pulse oximeter, oxygen readings. Everyone at home, including the child at home, knows how to read the pulse oximeter reading. Equally important. And please note down, the moment you get symptoms, start writing down. Very useful. Just start writing down. Today I had this. मुझे आज ये था, ये symptom था. कल ये है. Next day what I have. You will start noticing, able to track your symptoms, track your diary, know when you're getting better, what is happening, and start noting down your temperature, your pulse oximeter reading, and ideally we also tell, if possible, get your pulse also, which is seen in the pulse oximeter. And some people at home, little bit younger people are there, they can help you even count your respiratory rate. It basically means like for 1 minute, you just don't have to breathe fast. You just have to breathe normally, like how you're sitting. When I'm breathing, ask them to look at your stomach movement. That's generally a good indication. Ideally, your chest movement is important, but they may not be able to identify that. Looking at your stomach movement also is sometimes useful. That gives generally an idea about how your respiratory rate is. So a rate of more than 24 is important to note and write down and get to attention to your doctor. Yes, there are some markers which I will talk to you. So let us quickly see, because we are worried that we could progress. Can we become down? The virus typically has this stage. The first few days is called the viremia stage. This is that stage which is called the viremia stage, wherein the virus is just multiplying rapidly in the 4 to the 5 days to the 6th day. And that is a peak period when the virus multiplies and you get some mild fever, all these symptoms. And then after that comes the phase wherein, you start maybe recovering. You suddenly completely recover. That is possible. Some of them have the viremia stage and then the healing is a little slow. In some people alone, then it goes on to the stage wherein they may require hospitalization, their lung congestion starts coming, and then other problems starts coming. This is typically because your immunity is fighting against yourself. So beyond the 5 days or the 6th day, what happens is your body immunity is eating its own body, which is called as autophagy, which is like fighting its own organs. And that is when we land up with all these kinds of problems. That is when we need to look at which are these patients who might actually go down. So we need to know how is their saturation, can we treat them with just oxygen? Is it possible to just treat them with low dose oxygen at home? Or is there further progression? Do we need to admit them? Is there ways by which giving oxygen will help? Is there a role of giving some other injections like, or sometimes just tablet? Some of you physicians wouldn't have started on steroids ideally in the first 5 days. None of us start steroids, tablets for you in the first 5 days. But when you do have some symptoms further after 5th day or the 6th day, in consultation with your doctor will then tell you, yes, you need to start steroids now, which means does not mean injection. It just means that you require some tablets, either dexamethasone tablet or prednisolone tablet is given. This really is a game changer after the 5th day. If you start these steroids at the right time, complete resolution has been seen in over 90% to 95% of the cases. So it's very important to start these steroids and anticoagulants at the right time. And so that is why this clue of getting your blood test is very, very important. Always get these few blood tests done on the day 3 and the day 5, at least day 3 or day 5. And then you may repeat it later as and when if at all your doctor advises you. So there are few inflammatory markers apart from your basic blood count, which you always get it done. Ask them for blood count and note down these 2 important values: C-reactive protein, CRP it's called, and D-dimer. Your physician will advise you these things, but it's good to know and get these tests done, because higher amount of C-reactive protein, especially if it goes more than 20, is an indication of more toxicity that is happening. And similarly, high amount of D-dimer means there is a high risk of clotting, and then that is equally important. If there is an increasing trend of fever, your fever 1, 2, 3 थोड़ा light था, उसके बाद में 100 हो गया, फिर 102 हो गया, 103 हो गया, and it is still continuing. You are taking paracetamol daily, but in spite of that 5th day, it is not coming down. You need to get these markers down. Further, if there is a little bit drop in your oxygen saturation, then you need to not only get these tests done, it may be useful to ask your physician, either get a chest X-ray or a CT scan done. Most of them will advise you to go to a CT scan, because there are likelihood that sometimes chest X-ray will not give you a full picture, because not a 3-dimensional picture. So you will get to know the grading, especially the severity of the grading or lung involvement, especially when you do a CT scan. So for that matter, there may be an importance to do the CT scan at the right time. It does not mean that everyone requiring a CT scan requires admission. So it is just done to know the grade of the virus or grade of the inflammatory response in the body at that time, so that steroids can be started or other treatments can be started. And then later on, maybe after 1 more week, is it progressing, not progressing, can be monitored, and a repeat CT may be done, may not be done. So look at all these important things like increasing in respiratory rate, mujhe thakan ho rahi hai, I'm feeling breathlessness, dip in your saturation, any sign that tells you that I'm not feeling very well. This is extremely important. So that is when you will probably need to do these tests and correlate with your CT scan. And an important thing which you can do at home is called the walk test, or the 6-minute walk test. The 6-minute walk test is very simple. All you need to do is be at sitting posture first. And when you're seated, be calm, rest for some time, check your pulse oximeter reading in the middle finger. Do not check your pulse oximeter in the forefinger, which can be done occasionally, but ideally done in your middle finger, because both side circulations meets up in the middle finger, you get a more reliable value. So do it with your middle finger, check the oxygen level. And then you need to walk for 6 minutes inside the house itself. This walking is not a brisk walk. It is not like, you're going outside for a very fast walking or a running race or fast running, nothing. No, it's not an exercise. It is your normal walking, day-to-day kind of walking. If you were to just go to a grocery shop down, how would you walk? Just walk like that at home for 6 minutes. At the end of 6 minutes, sit back down and then check your pulse oximeter again. If there is a dip by 5% or more than that, which means that if it was around 94 or 93, and now it is coming down to 88, then that is an indication. Ideally, a fall of 4 value or 6 or more than 4 is an indication that you do require attention, and then you need to talk to your physician. So this is extremely important. Tell your doctor about this, and then he will let you know what is next to be happening. So as I told you, the initial phase is this viremia phase, where the virus is multiplying. This is a time when you should not panic. Most people who panic during this period of first 5 days invariably land up with more inflammation, more toxicity, and then your body inflammation starts eating your own body, and then you land up in the problem. Remember this, lack of panic in the first 5 days will ensure that all of them, almost all of them, will walk away without any further deterioration later on. This has been proven, studied. The anxiety level in the first 5 days is directly proportional to the severity that occurs later. So you need to calm down people, tell people there is nothing to worry, you're fine, especially elderly people or younger people these days panic more than the elderly people. I had the chairman of our avoidable blindness, Ravi Kumar sir, talking to me today morning. In spite of taking 2 vaccines, he turned out to be positive. His wife also turned out to be positive. And then he said, no, I was bindas. I am always bindas like this, nothing for me. My wife was also okay. My son was the one who was most difficult to manage. He was more hyperactive. He was more getting tensed. He was getting panicky. We had to console him rather than he consoling us. So that is the issue now. A lot of youngsters are actually getting into this panic-driven phase. So we need to take care of them, give them good care, good mental counseling. Most of the times, our body will come out as a winner. So you need to do that. Know your immune system during this time. Take all the care that you're doing. Salt water gargling, your betadine gargling, certainly most useful. Do steaming. Yes. Has it been proven? Proven, not proven? Yes. There are studies which do help you, tell you that the viral load will come down. They say if you take steaming twice a day, 100% you won't get corona. You may not, if you don't get God good bless, certainly good. But that taking steaming does not mean that you don't take other norms, other care that you need to do. Wear your mask still, do all the COVID norms that you need to follow, and continue your steaming. It will help you. Do your steaming even when you're down, it will help you. Because your body needs to fight with the virus. And when our body fighting the virus gets overwhelmed, gets too much, that is when we land up with all these problems. And that is when you need to do these tests. As I told you, some of them may require other tests like interleukin 6, which basically tells you, yes, there is something called the cytokine storm, which you all have heard. Many of them lose patients when they get into that kind of a stage. And yes, you may require admission, you may require oxygen. Your doctor will tell you whether you do require what kind of treatment. They do give you steroids. Steroids could be then given intravenous, could be given through injections. That is when you may require, your sugar levels will tend to go up and down. You do require treatment. They will keep you with anticoagulants. Sometimes just tablets may not be enough. You may require injections like heparin, which is given. Antiviral treatment may be required like remdesivir. Remember that giving remdesivir does not mean that you will certainly fight over it or get over it. This remdesivir has time and again been proven that it is helpful, ideally, in the viremia phase, in the first 5 days. Remember, in the first 5 days, none of us fall down requiring admission. So you start getting admitted only in the post-viremic phase. Remdesivir is given as a norm because it is FDA approved, because in order to prevent or at least help the patient come over it in some way or the other, assuming that there could still be viral multiplication, but it is not a must that remdesivir has to be given. In fact, the latest US guidelines, the Mayo Clinic guidelines, has removed remdesivir totally from its guidelines. There is no remdesivir, there is no tocilizumab, all these injections which you are seeing, no, not available. Aflozimab, this, that, all those injections and remdesivir are not at all in the norms prescribed at all. The guidelines gives basically very typical state guidelines of only the basic drugs, which basically includes your doxycycline, azithromycin, which may be given initially, followed by paracetamol, oxygen, and if at all required, steroids. This is generally the mainstay of your treatment along with anticoagulants. So is there a role for plasma therapy then? Yes and no, both ways. It basically means that yes, again, same thing. If you're treating the patient, if the fever is still fluctuating, then there is a chances that there is still a virus which is replicating. Therefore, in the initial 5th day or the 6th day you've got admitted, and say you do not have enough antibodies. So this is like buying time. You give plasma of a person who already has got COVID within the last 28 days, so that he has some antibody, and those antibodies will help you fight the virus temporarily till the other medications and your immune system is able to counteract it. In some it is beneficial, in some it may not be beneficial. How much of those antibodies that is given as plasma is working for you is not very much proven. So therefore, there is a role, but we need to take that with a pinch of salt. I've covered this. There is an important thing which we need to know here is there is something called long COVID. People who have recovered, people who are even mildly symptomatic and still continue to have some symptoms. I've been fine, I'm generally fine, oxygen saturation is fine, everything fine. I was positive 20 days back, I still have cough. Very, very common problem. There are people who can have cough for up to 3 months also post-COVID. This does not mean that you have virus, you will actually be secreting the virus every time you cough. No, you are not infective beyond the first 10 days of your active phase at all. Beyond that, you are no more infectious, which means virus does not replicate in your body. You do not secrete the virus. But it's important to remain masked up, certainly. And this cough is called as a sensorineural cough, or what is called as a sensory cough. It is just like, gale mein karash. Something. You always feel that something is there in the throat, and that is very irritating. So these are called sensory coughs. There are sometimes medications given to avoid that, steaming, using lozenges. Those things are very helpful. Some of them can have things like palpitations. Brain fog is a very important thing. A lot of them develop this thing called I'm not able to concentrate. I'm not able to think much. I was able to do things much faster. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling tired. These are very, very common things that actually can be there. And as Rotarians, it's important to know this. We lost one of our close friends, a colleague of mine in Hyderabad, after in the first wave, after he actually had COVID, recovered from COVID, 10-15 days after COVID. For some reason, he was extremely down that he went ahead and had in fact committed suicide. So things like this can happen to a doctor, a practicing doctor, a very renowned specialist in LV Prasad Hospital itself. So you can imagine if this is the kind of trauma or saturation of mind can happen, all of us need to be aware of it. Support the people who have been positive even later. Keep talking to them, very important. So these mood swings are very possible. Some of them can have loss of smell and taste for a long time, hair loss, sleep disturbances. There is no specific treatment for this. They continue your vitamin C, zinc, and general vitamins, B complex vitamins, vitamin D continuously, even after you have actually recovered from your symptoms, because that is going to improve your immunity and prevent most of this symptoms. I will quickly take you through some of the myths or doubts about vaccination. We can have a discussion subsequently to that. One important thing is, are these vaccines safe? As most of us already know now, whether it is safe or not safe. Now it's come to a state wherein, abhi lena hi hai, koi chara bhi nahi hai, and that is probably the only weapon we have to protect. Yes, absolutely must. We have gone through this phase now, wherein we know very clearly that yes, they are fast-paced in the sense the manufacturing of these vaccines has been fast-paced, but this does not mean that they are unsafe. Can you get COVID because you have taken a vaccine? This is a very common question which has come up. I took the vaccination, within few days, I became positive. Is it because I took the vaccine? No, because the vaccine per se does not ensure that you get positive. You could have contracted the infection while going to the place where you got vaccinated. Possibly someone could have been positive. You could have contracted it through the health workers also who might have been asymptomatic, possible, but it does not mean that the vaccine is creating the infection. It will not. It is a dead virus, either in the Covaxin or in Covishield. It's mRNA vaccine, which means that it becomes codes for a protein in the body, and so therefore there is no way by which the vaccine can give you the infection. If I have already had COVID, do I need to get vaccinated? Isn't my immunity sufficient enough? Yes, it is sufficient enough for a short period. That is why they say you need not and should not get vaccinated also for up to 2 to 3 months. Ideally, the government directive gives 3 months. Sometimes for a few people, we have been vaccinating at the end of 2.5 months also, because you already will have some antibodies. These antibodies that are formed after the COVID infection is slightly different from the antibody response that is going to be created after giving vaccine. Antibodies finally are the same when you contract the infection, but these antibodies that are formed after you get infection are all called humoral antibodies, are called what are called as B cell antibodies, which comes from B cell, whereas the vaccine antibodies that come are all what is called as T cell mediated, which is a different cell. So therefore, it's important to note that the type of immunity that is there between these two is not the same, and so you should not allow one immunity to fight against another immunity. That is why the gap is very, very important. The fatality rate of COVID-19 is so low. So do I need to be vaccinated? We know this. We are no more arguing this. All of us need to get vaccinated, because that will prevent us from spreading the virus to others, protecting our younger generation, protecting our children in the need to come. And yes, there will be vaccines which will get rolled out to them too. No need to say this again and again. Everybody has told, wear mask, always, vaccinated, not vaccinated, wear your masks. Will the vaccine alter my DNA? This is a big thing, and a lot of WhatsApp messages going on about saying, a lot of genetic engineering is done, and usme kuch chip dal ke rakha hai karke. We have still not come to the stages where a chip is put inside your vaccine DNA. Maybe in later times possible. Certainly bioengineering will take us to those times we need to be more worried about, but at this stage it just means these vaccines will not alter your DNA. Your DNA is not altered because the vaccine gets inside your body. It only codes for proteins which actually protect you from the virus whenever the virus affects your body. So it does not alter your DNA structure or your genes in any way. So which does not also means that, am I vaccinated? Some of them pregnant women sometimes say I'm vaccinated. Does it give protection to the newborn child? Totally. Partly it gives him a little bit protection when the antibodies transfers from the mother to the placenta. But this typically happens only if you are vaccinated within the 4th month. If you're not vaccinated within your 4th month of pregnancy, the antibodies will not transfer to the newborn child. So the newborn child could be susceptible. There are being newborns which have been detected positive immediately after childbirth within a short time too. So this is very important, therefore, to take care for a woman who is basically pregnant too. If I have underlying condition, should not be vaccinated. Apart from people who have anaphylaxis, which means severe allergy leading to shock, or wherein they can suddenly have a risk of developing a shock and can collapse, leaving that conditions where people go into that kind of state, leaving that, all of them, even allergies, even skin reactions, even asthma, even people on dialysis, all of them can be vaccinated. They are not very effective against the new variant. There are a lot of talk now, this Indian strain, African strain and all this. Is it very effective? We saw the latest report saying that both these vaccines are probably effective only 50% against the double mutant strain, which is likely in India. That is not the total COVID strain that we are seeing everywhere, but 20 to 30% of them may have this double mutant. And yes, there are chances that the body will not be able to fight it completely. That is why you need to safeguard yourself, protect yourself more, so that the chances of infection and you preventing others from getting infected also. Is there any severe side effects of the COVID vaccines? There are some common side effects. You could easily, most of you can develop a little fever, chill, headache, joint pain. These are something very common, but there are no major side effects that you need to be really worried about. People who are comorbid, like you could be having a diabetes, taking dialysis, you are going for dialysis. It's important that you tell your doctor that yes, I am scheduled for a dialysis. So when they do a dialysis, they will take that extra care. Or if you probably taken dialysis today, they would have sometimes used some anticoagulants like heparin. Then the next day, at least it's better that you don't take the vaccination immediately next day. You give 1 day gap and then take it. So these are the small precautions that you need to take. If you're taking heart medications which have anticoagulants called Formarin, warfarin, wherein your doctor would have told you, say for example, a stent or probably a pacemaker is put, such people may require anticoagulants. Your doctor would have told you to check periodically what is called as your INR ratio, which is your coagulation ratio. So that needs to be done before you actually take the vaccine, or maybe stop those tablets for a few days and then take the vaccine in order to prevent blood clots. So that's all. Having said this, I will just end this with this particular thing. We are dealing with something which causes almost 17 lakh deaths every year, almost 2.3 crores by 2030. 50% of them are under 50 years. 25% of them are under 40 years. What are we talking about? Something where sometimes we have only 4 minutes is all that we have to save a patient. That is cardiorespiratory arrest. This is the bigger ailment, something which is much, much more deadlier, 5 times more deadlier than COVID that we are actually working on. So we have fought with a lot more deadlier things. So remember that, yes, you have fought many more things. This is something which all of us together can easily fight it out. On that note, we have a Yugen Bharat portal. Yugen Bharat is one of our brainchild of myself, my wife, and another two other doctors, gynecologist, a physician, intensivist from Narayana Krityalaya. It is a portal for kind of a one-time solution online. Basically, it helps you to personalize your care. You can have online consultation during the portal. Using the portal, you can have home testing. We have a friendly ambulance services through which we are attached to. You could contact them, gives you education portals, and we have conducted a lot of health camps and holistic, health camps, including yoga camps, nutritional camps through it. So it's a brainchild for basically trying to reach out to the, all the sectors of the society. And we are working with Rotary part and part to ensure that, we can facilitate it more. So I think I'll leave it with this. Covered, I guess, most of the points, taking into account some of the previous experiences of similar webinars. So, but I'm open for questions. You can put it in the chat box, or you could unmute and ask anything silly. Please feel free, because I think just opening up your mind is most important.
Yeah, doctor, that was a very, very educative and exhaustive talk, and we are really enlightened after hearing what you said. I have two questions to ask. Number one, does the virus spread through packaging surfaces? When we buy grocery or even vegetables and fruits, does it spread through that? Should we keep them in quarantine, these goods, when we buy for some time before we touch them or use them? That is the first question. The second question is, you said it can spread through the eye also. So wearing goggles or specs, does it help?
Fantastic, sir. I will take the second question because you have told about the eye. Is more closer to my heart.
Yes, of course.
So, yes, it does spread through the eye. And so that's why, if you're probably wearing glasses, that is always protective, because for two reasons. One, then you're not involuntarily touching your eyes. So that is the main thing, because even before, you could have a mild amount of an eye redness infection, and then it can spread into your body over a period of time. You could then become typically symptomatic. But during that period, your eyes, your tears are also shedding the virus. So you could be touching it and then touching something else, and then creating more risk around. or you could probably, you know, the speed of it passing through your eyes internally will be very slow. You could be touching and then touching your nose. That is likely to spread the virus much faster directly into your lungs, into your respiratory tract, much faster than it actually going through your eyes. You know, when it spreads only through your eyes, actually from the eyes, the next thing that affects is it affects your olfactory system, which means it affects your smell, and then only it gets into your you know, back of your throat and things, which takes long time. And there are chances by then the virus load is also very less, and so therefore you're less symptomatic. But if you're touching your eyes and then touching your nose, there is likely to be more spread. So good to wear glasses. Sometimes we advise people with red eye just to wear the, you know, that kala chashma, cataract goggles, nicely covered, so that, you know, you're completely protected, or the punk glass, so that you're protected, so that you're not touching your eyes. I'll take the first question, which you talked about, you know, surfaces, disinfecting your surfaces. The chances of the virus remaining infective over a surface for a longer period of time is now ruled out. You know, later on, newer studies and things have come. They have found out that yes, I'm sitting here, I have handled a object, their virus, it could be contaminated. But if I leave it just like that for few hours or 6 hours, there are chances of active virus which will then infect you is much, much lesser. So the need to go ahead in the first wave, we were very paranoid about this. We were doing lot of sterilization, पूरा इसको यहाँ पे रखो, वहाँ पे रखो, सब्जी लेके आओ, इसे पूरा गर्म पानी में डुबो के रखो, पानी अंदर डाल के रखो, वगैरह वगैरह. So those things are not. You need to do it with little safety. Yes, do sanitize it, use a spray. If you have got something from outside, keep it for a few hours outside so that you're not touching it. But then later on, ensure that once you have handled it, wash your hands. And if you're carrying groceries or something, all you can do is put it in a kind of a chila. One of our rotary chilas are amazing. All our rotary bags, the cloth bags that we have used, fantastic way to market. Put it in that, get it, and just put it in a bucket of water and hot water, and leave it for some time, and just remove that, and then you can handle it. Don't have to be worried much about it.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Newspapers is a spreader, newspapers?
Newspaper is not a spreader. It used to be a big worry earlier. People had stopped newspapers and things and all, basically. So don't have to worry much about newspapers spreading it, because very less chances that the person who is handling the newspapers, you know, he's carrying so much in bulk. Every time he's not going to be touching his nose and things. So provided the person who is handling the newspapers is following the hygiene habits and then leaves the newspaper outside, all you can do is first get it inside, keep it inside for some time, and then don't touch it for probably an hour, and then you can handle it. No.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Any questions, anything else that came up in the chat box?
Yeah,
They have
I'll
already
just,
put it in the chat box.
yeah, I'll read that. First of all, thank you very much, doctor. I think it was a very, very exhaustive and detailed presentation. I know you are short of time, so I'll just pick up few questions from the chat box. There is one connected question. Will it also survive in drinking water? Some question has come. Is it the COVID vaccine, COVID-19, survive in drinking water?
Drinking water directly does not spread the infection in a great amount. It is shown that, like, you know, if the virus is actually incubated in water over a period of time, yes, if it is a normal temperature, it is alive. It is alive for some time. But its potential to create infection becomes very less. So there are very less chances that you will get infected by drinking water directly from some contaminated source or directly. Yes, you could develop a little bit GI disturbances and things for some time that might go off. But directly getting infected to the cause of it, causing illness just by drinking water doesn't come.
Okay. The next question is, how safe is it to get admitted for some other operations during this time? Also, how do you treat for eye-related surgeries? Send them as immediately as possible.
Yeah, we are treating emergencies at this time. Considering we are in the lockdown, you know, anything that is not an emergency is best put away. Simple as said as that, because the reason is we don't want you to be going out and contracting risk which is probably much more whenever you're going outside, meeting people, traveling for that matter, or coming in touch with other health workers. You could be coming to a hospital. Yes, we have followed all the norms, we follow all the protocols, everything. Our staff are also quite safe, are asymptomatic, we know that. But even we ourselves cannot be testing them every 2 days, which is not practical, cannot be tested every 5 days. Yes, sometimes once in 15 days, sometimes we still do test them to make sure that they are safe. But they could be harboring the virus. And so that is why your contact with health workers also needs to be as low as possible during these times. So do take medical attention if you need to. Do it online as a first option when possible. If you need to go in for a surgery for some ailment which is absolutely needed, your doctor will then tell you, yes, this has to be treated. I have to treat you. He is taking that extra liberty, extra chance, and extra care while actually handling you. And he's at a greater risk while even handling you. So remember that he is putting the, he's taking more chances than you, and he will not put you in danger. Right. So go with that confidence. And yes, if he says you need to undergo treatment, do undergo the treatment as per the norms as suggested. But he will guide you through, they will guide you through all the things that are required. During this time, if you need an eye surgery, if you need a cataract surgery, we see and tell you, yes, your cataract is there. If it can be postponed, we will tell you very clearly, please postpone it. Do not come for the surgery now. If it is some retinal problem, some other problem that you require urgent, like laser treatment for the retina, needs to be done. There is a bleeding in the eye, you have to do it. I am attending my OPDs for those reasons and giving those treatments. So emergency treatment, you please have to get it done.
Yeah, sure. There's a change of time between the 2 doses from 6 to 8 weeks to 12 to 16 weeks, as all of us we know. Now, what about the people who have already been vaccinated? That means the second dose has been given, say, within 6 to 8 weeks.
True.
They need to take another third dose after 16 weeks or something of that kind?
There may be a new norm that will come in basically. Right from initially when the Pfizer vaccine was initially launched and later on the Covishield came up, studies in the UK, US had shown that, like, if you increase the duration between the vaccine, Covishield especially, if you keep it to up to third month, that is exactly 12 weeks, then the second dose antibody that you get after the second dose is likely to be much more higher. So for that reason, it is now followed in wherein, yes, change it to 12 weeks. Whether part of it is also because the vaccine shortage is there is not really understood. But yes, scientific basis wise, it has been proved right from beginning that giving it a 12th week was beneficial. But considering norms given by the government earlier that you had to get vaccinated at 28 days and later on at 6 weeks, like health workers, we all got vaccinated at second dose by the 28 days itself. Our antibodies are likely to fall down, decrease by the 6th month. So there could be a necessity of taking a booster dose at the end of 6 months, subject to availability of the vaccine, rules by the government. It will come in. But certainly a booster dose sometime next year is something which is going to be a no.
Okay. Is it safe to get clothes pressed in a laundry?
Yeah, very interesting question. One of our close friends deals with laundry, and I had him talk to him a little 2 days back itself about what kind of norms, care protocol that he does, because he does laundry for the COVID victims also, where you have soil floats of people to be brought in either from home, hospitals, everything. He has a dedicated laundry for COVID section itself. When they have a dedicated section, yes, it's better that, yes, if you know very clearly that, yes, somebody from home also is positive, in a way sometimes it may be good to give this for laundry rather than you washing it at home, somebody else handling them. If the person is a young person, can handle it himself, fine. Assuming your father is down, and yes, you need to take care of him, and then you have his clothes to be washed and everything, and you are doing that job. You're also actually creating a greater amount of strain, stress for yourself, and also kind of putting yourself at a little more risk by handling. So in these situations, best would be to launder these separately, put it packed separately in a separate bag and give it to the laundry. Tell them specifically, this is of a positive patient. They know how to handle them separately. There are separate lines which they keep. There are separate detergents which they use to clean the soil. They literally treat it like a soiled garment that comes from hospitals. If we are actually, most of our hospitals have laundry on, wherein we use what is called as for the soiled, there could be blood stains or infective laundry that needs to be done. So this goes into that level, wherein, the clothes are not just washed, they are steam washed completely. And then they are exposed to high temperatures so that there is a complete death of all the viruses, everything. So they do steam ironing nowadays. So get steam iron done if at all you need to iron your clothes, because that will ensure much more safety of the cloths, hygiene, safety, and that ensures there is not very less amount of physical contact also.
Great. We'll just take one last question. Is it advisable to have an oxygen concentrator at home? Can this be easily used by anyone? And what is the ideal capacity recommended?
Correct. So there is a lot of panic buying, a panic thought process because of this oxygen concentrator issues, and people want to buy it. People want to keep it at home if somebody is not well and things. If you really have someone who is having some respiratory ailment at home, having some respiratory distress, is one of those COPD patients or asthma patients, and then yes, they need oxygen over a period of time. Those are the people who actually benefit from the oxygen concentrator, and they could benefit later on also. So in those situations, I might still say, yes, go ahead and you can invest in oxygen concentrator. But just because of this current situation, you want to go in and buy a oxygen concentrator, don't go into panic buying. If it, whether you require it, don't require it, you don't know, and then you're just buying it and keeping it, it is probably then not used. Yes, if you're staying in a community or something and you want to together buy it as Rotarians, you want to come together, buy some oxygen concentrator when you get an opportunity so that somebody in the community can use it. We did that for Rotary Platinum City. We got 2 oxygen concentrators, and we have kept it so that, in case it's needed by one of them, it was donated by one of them. So we can do that for a community when you are there. Yes, for a few people it might benefit. It may be worth getting one and keeping. You need to get something which is at least minimum 10 kg. When you go through the kg of the concentrator, you will notice that some of them tell you 5 liter, 8 liter, 9 liter, 10 liter, and all those things. Don't go by reading the liter at all. That is a huge misnomer and very, very confusing. The best thing is to buy something that is ideally minimum 10 kg and above. It should be ideally 12 kg and above. So ideal is to buy something which is 15 kg, or even better is 20 kg. This is the concentrator that will actually give you enough oxygen when you keep it at a flow rate of 5 or 6. It will still give you 80 to 90% oxygen, because most of them will give you 90% oxygen when you keep it at 2 or 3. The moment you change the meter to 5 or 6, which is needed in these patients, right, you will get not even 50% oxygen. That is absolutely of no help to the patient. So that is why it's very important that you keep this. There are oxygen cylinders getting better now. The situation is getting better slowly. And also the cases are dipping. There is a slight dip in the last 2 days. So keeping that in mind, keeping that oxygen supplies are coming in, cylinders are getting available, hospitals, that acute shortage in the hospital which we saw last week, which we heard so much, is slightly coming down. They are getting oxygen slowly. Even the bed situation may get better. So keeping all this in mind, at least the panic buying for some concentrators, I think, can be helpful.
Wonderful, wonderful. Doctor, thank you very much. I think you answered all the questions so very nicely. And most important thing that you have given us all is that 4-letter word, hope. I think that's the best part which you have done. So thank you very much. I would not take much time because we are already delayed. You have another meeting, I know. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the invitee clubs. There are 7 clubs, all of them, they have joined together. That's so nice. I think this was a wonderful platform for all of us to network, to all of us to get together here and listen to you. And I would also like to thank all our members from Rotary Bangalore Whitefield Central, Also, everybody who has joined, thanks Mr. Rajiv Bhatia for doing the introduction for the speaker. And wish everybody stay safe, stay home, and let's all get together and get this virus out of the community as soon as possible. So once again, thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you all. My number is put in the chat box. It's also there in part of my screen. Any one of you need to call me, message me, take a professional advice, anything, please feel free. I'm your Rotarian friend here, so anything silly at any time, please find it free to call. Thank you.
Where is your clinic, doctor?
I have my hospital in Yelahanka and Hebbal, sir.
Yelahanka and Hebbal. Okay.
It's called Rangalakshmi Netralaya. That's my hospital. So it's in Yelahanka and Hebbal is a branch. So anything, any eye care advice, anything, please feel free. Perfect. Thank you all. It's been wonderful having all of you. It was wonderful. I had some of my friends joining in,
Yes,
my co-presidents and also some of my close friends. So
Yes,
wonderful to have all of you.
yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
पेशेंट लोग होते बोलना रे